So you're enjoying being a DP?
I I love it.
Yeah, it's good, right?
Um, I did a few things before I was in music.
Yeah.
Before I did that, and then I had a clothing business, and then I did some like videography stuff.
Mm.
But once I kind of found out what cinematography was and like started pursuing DPing, I don't know, I've never felt more fulfilled, but also more curious and like
Challenged.
challenged in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's the best job in the whole world,
It's
personally.
up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a long time, so I love it.
25 years, right?
I think more.
What made you get into it?
I just got into it like most people where I was a PA and then I was attracted to the camera department. So my story is that I was on a movie that um Guillermo Navarro was shooting. Uh, he's a DP, won an Academy Award as a cinematographer, and his car broke down, and they were like they needed somebody to drive him to set and back every day, and that was me for a couple weeks.
So you got to talk to him.
Yeah, yeah, he was a pretty inspiring guy. He's a great guy. I've seen him since. He's still around.
Mm. Does you remember that you drove him?
I mean, it definitely took some explaining to do. I think we were like on a lot or something, and I peeked my head in, and there he was, and I went up to him and sort of I just thanked him. Really,
Mm,
is what I did.
amazing.
He's a good dude.
When you first started, did you even understand like the role of a cinematographer, or did you just see that person and like, oh, that's like a cool job?
Yeah, I didn't really know. Oh, first, I mean, we're talking. I was 20 years old. So understanding anything at that point in my life was challenging. I wasn't the most perceptive or sort of informed young man. Definitely struggled at that time.
In what way?
I was really had tons of learning disabilities, and I still do have them, dyslexia and stuff like that. And I was just like, I had to go to community college and couldn't get into college, and just floundering, struggling, and just was. My parents were very liberal people, and they didn't really discipline wasn't like a thing.
Mm.
So the journey to figuring out my place in life was torrid.
Dig a little deeper into what you mean by that, torrid.
Well, I was just a young man I was anti-establishment
Okay.
and sort of like any kind of authority figure. I was a rebellious young guy. Yeah.
Do you think that still plays a role in who you are today? You think there's a part
Yeah.
of you?
Yeah. There is. I mean, one of my things that I always do is I never wear the same color socks.
I noticed that.
It's sort of the only thing I've left of that young person. But yeah, I mean, I think I grew up in Seattle, Washington during the 90s. So I saw all the grunge bands, and I worked as like a security guard at concerts was one of my jobs. So that influence of rock and roll, punk rock was always like deep. That's how I got into photography was being at those concerts.
Do you think that your background growing up and the way that you are now has influenced the way that you raise a child
Um,
and being a father?
yeah, yeah. I think there, we could, there's like, I think there's a lot of problems with modern education. And I think like the future, I think we're now realizing how important things like EQ is to a young mind. And, you know, um, academics seem to be becoming, I wouldn't say outdated. They're not outdated. They're just sort of like less crucial to success.
Right.
I mean, I think we live in an economy now that's based off of things like, creative, out of the box thinking that, breeds innovation. And I think that that's sort of what still allows this culture to have um, a strong economy and still have creation and innovation. And I think this sort of the education system that I grew up in was much less attuned to that kind of thinking
Mm.
and educating.
I come from a place where I thrive, or I believe in um, working and finding your way and making mistakes. And I think the education system for me, I wasn't too, I didn't really fit in too well. And I think that because of who I am is, I think because I decided to take chances on myself and um, take risk outside of the education system.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think we're similar in that way. I mean, when you dive into the creative world, when you dive into a life, I don't even call it a career, I don't call it a business, it's just a lifestyle, like being a cinematographer or whatever the sort of version of that in your life is. I think you're essentially just like jumping off of a cliff as a young person. I think it's like once you make that choice, you jump off that cliff and you just ride. And I've been riding for 30 years. It's just like, I think also, you have to sort of give in to this idea of being um, productions and shoots. I tend to like relate them to like being on a river or drifting through a river and just kind of like finding your way or being or surfing or it's like they're like these waves or these currents and you have to navigate them, but you also have to let them navigate you. So like I think that kind of personality is a good one for what we do.
Mm. Do you find that you, in the beginning, what was something that you found that you struggled with in the beginning of your career as a DP in that role specifically? Was it balancing the politics of it, the creative side, the logistics, or was it leadership even? Because there's so many different attributes that you have to be proficient in to become a DP and do it well, especially at like the level that you are. You wear so many different hats, and compared to a DP that is just starting, that role is significantly different.
Good question. So like I said, I think I told you I've been a DP for 30 years. So I've had many versions of myself as a DP. Um, I was one of these people who it happens more often now, but back in the early 2000s, this kind of thing was rare where like you're out of film school and immediately start working and immediately shoot up in, especially in the music video world where I spent a decade working. Uh, it makes you into kind of like a false rock star. Like you become kind of like your ego just gets inflated. And a lot of the things that I attributed my success to were misguided ideas. So like I bought into all this BS about um, my talent, and without really, uh, I realized that I was buying too much into what people were telling me, and too much into my success.
Did you not think you were good?
I mean, I think I was okay. I was fine. I was good. I'm not saying wasn't good. I just was too. I was just inflated. Like I was so
Your
inflated.
ego at the time was
Yeah,
too
just
high.
way inflated. I mean, I was one of the younger DPs working at that time, and so I thought I just it was just not a good way to approach a creative mindset. And I think it took me I think I burned a lot of bridges, and it took me a really long time to mend a lot of relationships because I just thought I could do no wrong. And I'm inherently kind of an aggressive, like, know it all. I do, I do have like that side of me, and I have to suppress that, and I've learned to. But like, it was bad for about 10 years when I was young, when I was doing music videos, and it still follows me to this day.
What was that process like that you had to kind of transform yourself? Was it like, was there a specific moment that you looked in the mirror like this is not going to end well?
Yeah, I was, there was a point midway through my career that I was just looking at my work and just being like, this is not what I want to do. Like, I was just not happy with it. And I don't think it was a lack of of my skill or my ideas. It was just that I think I just was not great to work with at a certain point in my life. I don't think people wanted to work with me.
What are things that you notice about yourself now that are different than that younger version of you? How do you how could you or what could you pinpoint about your personality now or the way that you work that is a more conducive leader or somebody to work with than in your past?
Um, well, I think I'm able to have more fun now.
That's interesting.
That was, you know, I think before it was always about pain or something. And
Mm. Did you feel like you had to prove something?
I don't know. I'm not really sure if I had to prove something. I was just like, I mean, I think we all feel like we have to prove something, but like, I was just really young and I was on big giant sets and I just was, maybe I was insecure. I don't know, but I just felt like I was alone.
Mm.
I felt like I was like the only, if I didn't get this done, it was going to be a whole nightmare and everything felt over dramatized, whether it was or whether it was my mind. I'm not sure. Um, but I was a tyrant, and I just realized that like my work was suffering because of it for many reasons, and I just was not listening to people, and I was bulldozing directors, and it was terrible. It was a terrible time. I mean, it was fun. It was a great time. There were certain directors that I hooked up with who were just doing 100 music videos a year or 60 music videos a year, and we were just crushing. And there were some very loyal people who understood me, but it just wasn't a great way to get like new directors to work with.
I wonder if maybe this is similar, not as maybe extreme, but when I first started DPing, I noticed that my insecurities related to how I would relate things to my crew members, in specifically maybe the lighting side. And because I was maybe not confident in my abilities or not confident in who I am, and I was insecure about it, I wouldn't necessarily hire people that were better than me because I wanted to be surrounded by people that could help me improve. I was insecure about that, so I would hire people that maybe I felt I was better than
Mm,
on that crew side. And when it came to lighting, I was super specific on what I wanted, what fixture, where I wanted it,
yeah,
exactly to the point where I didn't even allow any creative freedom
yeah,
to anybody else. And then I had a moment where I was like, my work is looking the same.
yeah,
It's not because I'm not allowing anyone else to be
yeah,
involved.
yeah,
And I had a moment where I just realized that I'm allowing my insecurity and my lack of confidence to negatively impact how I lead a team.
yes,
And I think once I shifted that, I've noticed a drastic change in how I'm able to work with people,
yeah.
the people that I work with, and the quality of my work, I think has changed.
I would agree with that. I think listening and empowering people is important. I don't know if my experience is exactly the same as that.
Hmm.
I think I always wanted to work with great people for sure. I think I was just possessed, honestly. I think I really was. I think I was so I was very passionate about what I was doing. And I think my problem probably was that I mixed my conviction for my work and my need to make great work I think I just put too much weight on it all.
Mm.
And it was outweighing my sort of anything else in my life. And it was so intense. I was so like crazy and just like, and I had the tools to kind of like flex. And it was just
You
that,
went all out.
yeah, I was just like, take no prisoners. I felt like that's what I would, I think it was also the era, because we were coming off
This
of,
is pre-social media, right?
oh
This
yeah, this
is
is film
yeah, this is
years,
yeah, for sure.
2001 to 2010.
So it's a totally different world.
There was this culture also that was still lingering. This is before Me Too or for any of this
Mm.
kind of stuff. There was this culture of screamers that we came up in.
I've never experienced,
Yeah.
maybe once, but not really.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
Yeah, no, not even
No,
close.
no, no, no. But in the 90s, and I mean, people, you can it's I'm not going to name any names, but like there were very some of the most successful, especially in the short form world, but in features as well. There was sort of this very male culture of yellers, where like you were like it was like commanding a ship or something. I don't really know. I was never a screamer at all, but I worked with angst, and I worked with a lot of or just a lot of like what's the right word? Like, self-importance and like sort of, this idea that I could do no wrong. I thought that that was what my job was. And I think I just confused that gift of opportunity to, just to kind of go down my own self-indulgent, crazy like ideas. Um, Whereas I realized it's just a terrible way to be on set, and it's unnecessary, totally unnecessary. You can communicate your ideas and your
Not,
feelings,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and not be crazy
Right.
and just be totally normal person.
Do you find that you're almost polar opposite? Like you're very calm now?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now exactly. Now I'm like the calmest person. Yeah. I'm still intense and I still have an intensity in me. And I think people feel that, I don't think I felt like I needed to communicate my intensity before, but people feel your intensity. They know. And
Does your intensity just come from the passion that you have?
yeah, I
Mm.
just want to make great work,
No matter what it is, you just want to owe it. Whatever,
always.
if your name's attached to it.
That's my thing. I was talking to this young DP recently, and on this music video we just did. I just did a music video, first one I've done in years, and it was a great experience. But we had a second unit, and this young DP, and she was asking me this about like what her direction was, and she was kind of confused. I don't think she'd ever actually been in a second unit DP, and I was just like, just be inspired, like just try not to overthink the situation, like just make images that you love, and I think that like that's all we're really after, right? I think
Mm.
that's our oxygen. It's just like, do you look through the lens and are you inspired, like and then she was saying, well, what if the director wants me to just like hose it down, which is my least favorite word in filmmaking. But and she's like, I run across that a lot with directors. They want you to just hose down. Well, you're just gonna be that person for the rest. Your name doesn't really have any. You're the hose it down person.
So for you, it's important. Your name is important and what you represent is important. And if that requires you to push back on something that you believe in because you like it and you love it for your eye, that's important to you.
Pushing back is a big thing. I don't think every department can do it. I don't think everyone should do it to the director, but making sure the director has conviction about his or her decisions. So I'll a lot of times I'll just play devil's advocate. I'll just disagree with something just to see how convicted they are. If they fold,
About their idea.
yeah, if they fold, I know that it's kind of like they're not totally sure. But if they're very sure and they're like, this is no, and they kind of get annoyed, then I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Right.
This is the right choice. This is what they want. And I think that that's a big part of being a cinematographer, is being able to interpret a director's real desires.
Right. I find that to be really interesting because I think at this stage in my career where I'm at, I find that not every project that I get to shoot, I feel an opportunity to be able to essentially curate or create. A lot of it is kind of just like maybe basic commercial or corporate work
Hmm.
sometimes.
Hmm.
And I'm getting to the place more where I'm doing some more narrative work and I can find my style. But I think in the beginning stage, I don't know if maybe you could think back to that time or even how you would approach this if you were me. How do you find your, like, is it looking through images and inspiration? I like this, I don't like this. And then asking yourself why? And then how do you find projects or how do you work on projects that maybe don't call for that, but still you can interject yourself?
Mm.
Sorry, that was a little long-winded, but
No, it's a great question. I don't know if there's an answer for it.
I can't seem to find one.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, if a project, the key is to find small victories, I guess. This is what you're describing is a long ways back for me. But I have been there. Uh, the key is to find small victories, experiment, try to talk people into doing things that they don't want to do, so you can try to experiment. Um, and I mean, it depends on how industrial the project is. Certain projects you're never gonna, yeah,
And some projects don't even call for
yeah,
anything.
and
It's
people,
just
it's just,
shoot in, go home.
yeah, exactly. Again, I just don't get hired for those
Of
things,
course. Yeah, yeah.
so it's hard for me to interpret. What I will say about that subject, though, is just trying to feel connected somehow to what you're doing, whether it's trying a new lens or shooting a deep stop or shooting a wide open. I don't know, whatever makes you feel like you're doing something you've never done before.
So I guess to me, what I'm hearing about is the consistent ability to just stay curious.
Yes. Yes. That's a big part of it. And I have this weird, Picasso and a lot of artists, even Conrad Hall, would talk about having like very little memory about their past and about the past work, and sort of having like this childlike um, approach to everything. So I think that's part of it, right? It's just like maintaining an innocence towards the process, so you can still be excited about it and still be in wonder of all of it. And I think that's less. I think the new tech has helped that, because there's always new tech and that's always fun. Um, but I think that's a great sort of just words to live by that I've always been into, and not kind of dwelling on the past or dwelling on like trying to be in the moment. I think that's sort of the key to a lot of things in life.
Mm. Do you find that in the beginning of your career, even maybe middle or where you are now, that you find that your state of mind is in the present rather than the future? Because I find for me, I tend to live in the future a lot, and whether that be positive or negative, and if that brings like a sort of anxiety of when is that next job coming or whatever, fill in the blank, or I imagine myself DPing this big thing.
Mm,
I tend to live there, and
mm.
sometimes I forget that I'm here
Yeah,
in the
I think it's
present.
the same conversation that we were just having. Is like, how connected can you be to your imagery? Like when you look through the lens, and I say that nobody looks through lenses anymore, but when you look at the monitor or whatever, does it move you? I think that you have to be, that's you, that's your signature. That, like when you look at your image and you're like closing your eyes mentally or physically, whatever way you want to look at it, and you're like doing the mental math on why that is yours, that should add up in your mind in some way, even if it's a small thing. It should be like, oh, I see this, I see me here, I see this, I'm making this choice, I'm making that choice, I'm risking something here. This is, and I think like every time you pick up that camera, it should be exciting, and it should be like you're risking something. I always tell people, if you're not willing to risk something, you should be risking taking risks every moment you pick up the camera. You should be an accountant if you're not. That's the whole point. Anyone can light something or expose something, or anyone can learn how the camera works. It's actually a very simple tool. But how do what are you doing to break the box, which again is a dated term, but
No, I really resonate with that a lot because I noticed a stagnation in my work. And granted, I'm an infant in this
yeah.
industry, and but I try to be I don't know, maybe too introspective sometimes. But I noticed a stagnation last year, the year before in my work, where I was just doing the bare minimum. I was just getting the boards from the agency or director and being like, great, that's it. We're going to shoot that. I felt okay feeling comfortable and just like doing whatever, because maybe it was a lack of responsibility if it didn't work potentially because it wasn't my idea. But I think now that I've been pushing for this past year is, even if it doesn't work out, I'm glad that I risked something, or I'm glad that I tried something.
Yeah.
And if it failed, that it will inform me for the next time. I think I'm more willing to make mistakes now because I'm willing to try something than to feel comfortable in just doing the bare minimum.
You have to. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the only way to learn, and I made my whole career on that concept of like push. Some of my best work was always the work that felt wrong at first. You
Mm,
know, it was like, whoa, maybe it was for a minute, maybe it was for an hour, maybe it was for a day, maybe it was for a week. But there was a time where I see the work and I was like, wow, I made all my insecurities are coming true here. Like it's too dark or it's too grainy or it's too this or too that. And I'm really hard on myself. Like we all are, right? But like through time is always the best critic. You know, there's nothing like time to analyze your work. And a lot of times the best work would come from those moments. I would say most of the times. And then all of a sudden that hits your reel and it stays on there for 10 years. And that's people, there's work that I did 20 years ago that people are just like, damn, that killer's music video you did or whatever it is, you know, it's just like, and it's because you gamble.
mm. Do you think that your past quote unquote gambling on projects help you feel more comfortable in continually gambling on future projects?
Well, also I think I'm kind of addicted to
That
it.
feeling?
Yeah, it's a little bit of like a drug addict thing.
Yeah.
Like if you win on a gamble, you're like, wow, this is
Mm.
like,
How often do you feel like you lost on a gamble?
I try not to lose very often, but it definitely, I don't know what the numbers are, but I've definitely lost. Yeah.
Do you think those are not equally as important, but do you find that those are really important moments for you when you do notice that maybe you didn't win on something that you were fighting for?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's a high-minded way of looking at it, but you know, I don't know if I aspire to ever like make a mistake that ruins a project, but I've definitely done that. I don't think I do that I mean, now the thing is like, you know, after I shot 15 years of film, like it was a different, now you can kind of see. You could still take risks now, totally. You just have to talk people into it a little bit more than you used to.
Mm. Do you find that you are as obsessed with your work now than you
Yes.
were 30 years ago?
Yes. Oh,
Do you think you're more obsessed?
I think I'm more obsessed is a weird word. I mean, I think I'm always obsessed. Now I'm more able, maybe just more have the ability to like intellectualize it a little bit more and understand it, which makes it kind of more interesting and more fun.
Can you elaborate on that?
I think now when I look at my work, I'm able to break it down more precisely, and because I'm just calmer and more like sort of less chaotic in my brain, I can break down the series of events almost like in a photographic memory style where like you can go through and be like, okay, so I spoke to the director, we talked about this, and then this producer, and then the budget, and then and how all that adds up, right? And I can see the whole picture now, which is really interesting. How you get that imagery is more is a I have a greater ability to analyze it from all sides than I did, and I find that super interesting. And it just you just learn so much every time you kind of look at what you've done.
Mm. Do you have like a sort of post shoot reflection type thing where you
Yeah.
look? What is that process?
Well, the best way to do it, I find, is like you'll see the piece comes in to you, whether it's in an email or whatever, and you'll watch it, and you kind of always have the same reaction. The first one, you're just kind of like, I don't know, that kind of sucks. And then you maybe watch it again, and maybe watch it 3 times. But the good work, you watch like 100 times.
Mm. Like you keep going back.
You're like, wow, wait, hold on, and you're just like you keep finding different ways to see it. And I noticed that like that is a I get really excited when I keep obsessively watching my work over and over again because I know that it has like a timeless feeling to it that just it just feels like it came out in some place that was a great place. Those moments where you're just watching your work over and over, and you're like, you kind of lose your connection to it, that you made it and you become an audience member, and
Right.
you're like, wow, this is
Mm.
actually entertaining.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I noticed that for myself when I watched the feature that I shot.
Yeah,
It was something that I fully separated myself from. And I was like, I'm super proud of this.
yeah,
Like as an audience member, I was engaged in the story
yeah.
and obviously I shot it and I know the story inside and out, but I had that moment where I was just like, this is amazing.
Well, I think it's
This
easier to
feels
do on a
on a
film.
narrative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, most short stuff is pretty disposable. So,
I wanted to ask about your ability to find balance with your family.
oh wow, yeah,
Because I just got married and I've been with her for 10 years,
oh wow,
since high school. Um, but it's something that I, I, I don't think anyone has the answer to, but in your own personal experience, how have you been able to kind of work with your partner and
oh wow,
being a father to,
yeah. That's. I have two children. Yeah, 14 and 10. Uh, that's a big subject. For me, it's a huge subject. I mean, I think it's probably one of the. I'm not going to say the only reason, but one of the major reasons I've done so much short form work is like being away is a big thing for me. I try to never be away for more than 2 weeks. So I'm a family first person for sure, and that's number one. So I'd like to think that I'm as committed and as passionate and love as much as anybody does, but to disregard is a nice way to put it. Your family over your work, I think is. I just don't adhere. I don't subscribe to that, and I never have. And also think that your longevity as a creative person or a filmmaker, whatever you want to call it, will suffer uh, if your family isn't like in the right spot. So I believe I'm a big believer in that you're only as good as your family life.
mm,
Um, I know a lot of people don't think that way, but that's the way I feel.
I, I feel similar.
Yeah.
Um, I grew up close to my family,
Yeah.
and my wife is even more close with her family, and I've been able to get integrated into her family, and um, I noticed that if when I don't have that, or if I notice that I'm not around family for a specific amount of time, I feel like I change a little bit,
Yeah.
and I think that's really important what you said that you decided to focus on short form
Yeah.
because a lot of people come in knowing that they want to do features
Mhm.
or shows and they might be gone for 6, 8, 10 a year or whatever it is. But I think is it courageous? Do you think the word is that you decided to focus on one thing?
No, I don't think it's courageous at all. I think it has to do with mental health, honestly. I believe in that deeply. Uh, I mean, I haven't done a lot of movies. I've done one or two, whatever it is. They were pretty bad experience. I mean, the last one was a really bad experience. It was really hard, and the people on set were just, was like pretty sad people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you know that going into it?
No.
I guess was that kind of your final straw for narrative?
No, no.
Do you have any more interest
Oh
still?
yeah, oh yeah. No, I'll definitely do narrative. Now that my kids are getting older too, I feel like that's something that I can start to do. And I'm still really excited for it. I haven't like burned out on it. I'm still excited for it. But narrative, you just have to find your comfort. I have to find my comfort zone and be with the right kind of people. I've learned that. So it's almost even a lot of times it's less about, well, it's about everything, but the people are extremely important to committing like whatever it is, 3 4 months of your life to. It can be more, I guess.
I think something I'm interested in because her and I have discussed. kids, and not sure when that would happen. But I think I don't know if there's like a right time that you'll be ready to be a father or something, because I feel that sometimes I'm not um, comfortable in my career yet, or whatever even that means.
Yeah.
And I think something I'm trying to figure out and ask people is like, within a field that provides unpredictability and maybe not stability, how do you find that stability in being a father and being grounded and being at home and not taking maybe certain baggage with you at home?
I find it a good thing. I don't have any issues with it. I mean,
Mm,
I think when I'm gone, I'm gone. But when I'm here, I'm here. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like I'm fully into it when I'm here.
Mm,
I think a lot of parents who have like 9 to 5, I would argue that I'm probably, I don't know, it's a hard argument, but I would say I'm more present than a lot of people because when I'm not working, I'm just like, here I am,
right.
just like
Yeah.
waiting for the kids to come home or picking them up, taking them to school, whatever. So I'm fully committed. There's no distraction
Mm.
really when I'm not working. So I enjoy it. I think it's been great.
Part of my, I don't want to say like calling is to be a dad, but it's something that I really look forward to in my life one day,
Yeah,
is to be a
then you
dad.
should do it.
Yeah.
I say to people like, if you don't if you don't want to do it, don't do it. There's
Mm.
no reason to do it. Like people feel like compelled to do it, like they're
Right.
missing something. Or, but if you want to do it,
I
it's
do,
great.
for
Yeah,
sure.
it's a wild ride. Wild ride.
Do you think being the day that you became a dad, you changed as a person?
I describe it as like um, BC and AD.
Okay.
Like literally, your life, like that little thing, comes out, and your whole life
Mm.
view,
Changes.
everything changes.
Do you become less selfish, more
Yeah,
selfish,
you become less selfish.
less selfish?
Yeah.
How does that kind of translate to your work and like what you choose to do?
Um, I mean, you think about your kids watching your work, which is a trip.
Oh, like the type of
Yeah,
content? I
that's a
see.
thing for
Mm.
sure. Uh,
Does that directly inform what you say yes to? And like, if it's
yes.
something that maybe is like too, uh, I don't know, not something for kids to watch,
Yeah,
you would say no to something potentially?
potentially. I mean, it's
Oh,
not the
that's
one
interesting.
thing, but it
Mm-hmm.
definitely factors.
Right.
Um, I would say that's the main thing, I would say children also inspire you, to do better work, I think. And I think those are kind of wrapped into the same thing. Um, but yeah, it's, what did I lost track. What was your
No,
question?
that's totally fine. I I think just the importance of being a dad and like how that's changed you as a person inherently, or it's like how's that changed you as like a husband, and
Yeah.
also has that changed like translated into your work at all?
Yeah. I mean, I just think I'm a softer person, I think, and I think hopefully that means more human somehow and more, uh, emotionally available and connected. I I mean, children are great, like I think they add to the narrative of life, to the richness of it, and I think they add to your ability to see the world. Do
Like that
they
playful energy.
inform your work? I mean, they must in some way, but like I don't know how much they actually change your work.
Even like my little cousins, is their just constant ability to be curious about the most simple things.
Yeah.
Is and I think that is something that I want to bring to my work, is just more playful, childlike energy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. They're like in it, they're like in the moment for sure. They're innocent minds that come up with weird ideas that you'd never think of. And I try to, I love childlike behavior. I try to always bring that into my life in every aspect. Think like a child.
If you could pinpoint or kind of think about the span of your career, and I know we talked a little bit about your past and things that you have changed, but is there anything else that you could look about in your career or even in your life outside of film that you wish you would have done differently?
Um, wow. Yeah, I'm sure there's a million things. I mean, done differently is a weird,
It is weird
I
for
try not
sure.
to have like regrets,
Of course.
you
Yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of movies that I turned down that ended up being hits for sure. But I don't know if I like regret that at all. Yeah. I don't like have any regrets. Definitely not. Definitely not. I definitely either rationalize them away or just have too much fun doing this stuff that I'm doing now. That I'm like every shoot that do, I really do have fun. At least in the last, once out of every 10 or 12, it's kind of like you're like, oh, that kind of sucked. But I always find a way to enjoy it.
Of course. Yeah, yeah. Love that. Mm. Do you find that inspiration sometimes when you try to find inspiration for work
Mhm.
is a good thing and a bad thing? Because the way that I look at it now, because there's like shot deck, frame set, there's like a bunch of, I mean, on Instagram alone, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know about you, but my feed is filled with DPs and
Yeah.
directors, and I'm constantly looking at stuff.
Yes.
So do you find that looking at that work and finding inspiration that way, does that limit your ability to be original?
Mm. Well, I don't really believe in originality. I think, everything's been done for sure. So I think my approach is like I'll find reference, but every time I do it, it turns out so much different than the reference. So it's more inspiration is a great word. It's just inspiration. I love being inspired and aiming for something. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like my work is like, I don't think anyone's saying like I'm copying anything or anything like that. I feel like somehow it always ends up feeling like my work. And I think it's just, again, it's just like, are you connected to it? Does it move you? I think if you're copying something, you're not like being moved. You're just kind of like going like, oh, that looks like this, or
You don't seem to be the person that really settles.
yeah. I mean, I just think like if you have a reference and you're trying to like match something that's not your work, also just feels boring and kind of it's not like emotional, like you set down a reference and you look at it, you go down that road, but when you're there and you're in it, it feels like that's far away and you're just like in it and you're just like trying to figure out how to connect and how to feel and how to like craft and make this whatever it is. There's just so much chaos in filmmaking that like
Mm.
you're just trying to navigate this wave, this massive wave that's so much bigger than you, and trying to hit like a specific reference just seems at the moment seems kind of like far away from all of that.
I'm curious about your process when kind of getting onto a project.
Yeah.
What are some of the initial conversations like with the director in particular? Are you trying to inject your ideas immediately, or are you trying to be more of a listener in the beginning?
um that's interesting. Depends on the director, depends on the situation. I use references a lot. I love references, and I
Do you
watch
build
films a lot.
do you
So
build specific like sort of reference lookbooks or whatever for each commercial that you do?
I would say just yes, and not lookbooks, but like, links and
Right,
images
just
and
references.
yeah, I'll just use like, whatever. Maybe like I've been getting into just using like those shared folders, those are good. But I love working with references. I think that they're really helpful. I've always loved them. I've always, even before before, not before the internet, but before like, we had all this stuff that we're talking about. Um, I would always dig, it was always very important to me to kind of, I'm not a great like academic mind, like I said before, but I do have a great visual mind and
Mm-hmm.
I can communicate my thoughts pretty clearly through images. So that's my dialogue. So I'm able to do that. As far as directors and communicating with them and my ideas, I do tend to be more, I wouldn't say forceful, but more opinionated maybe.
Okay.
I think I'm a DP who sometimes throws off directors about how many ideas I have. I'm always willing to throw them away, but I think some people feel like I'm almost too vocal and too present, and I think actually that has burned me in the past, and I've developed that relationship, that reputation. And I think that that can backfire on you, on me. Tends to work maybe better with younger directors, who are maybe a little bit more open to it. Some of the more seasoned directors I've worked with don't necessarily love that. I think there's so many voices in their head they don't want to hear another one. Um, but some love it, and I just find my people.
Mm,
I just can't help it. I have so many
right.
ideas. I'm like a fountain of ideas, and I always have been. And I'm always excited to try to, again, like I just am the kind of person that I want to feel connected, and I want to talk, and I want to know, and I want to be, oh whoa, I want to be I'm just maybe overly involved as a DP and stepping over my like job description, but I just can't help myself.
I mean, I think that's part of the, if not the reason why, from my perspective and the people that I know that are familiar with you and your work, are the reason why we look at you as like one of the top commercial DPs.
Thank you.
And like truly your work is inspirational. And I think that really stems from what you're saying right here, is that you really have this ambition, this passion that inherently, whatever it is, you feel that you just need to put yourself into it. And regardless, like I think that it speaks volumes to from us what we see in your work.
And I appreciate that, I get a lot of love from the DP community, and I love it, and it's amazing, and I'm just, I'm always overwhelmed with that, and I think DPs are great people, and they're always sweet and amazing. I will say though, there is a real other side to that, which is, some directors, producers, it, there really is a detrimental side of that too. So I would just say there's all different ways to do it, and uh, but again, I've tried to stop my voice from being so loud, but it tends to be.
I was going to ask if you find that you are adaptable to different DPs, directors' personalities or producers' personalities.
I am, and I've had to work on that, and that's a challenge for me. But yeah, I am. Again, that's the challenge for me, to do that, but I can do it. It's just, I'm from New York City. Like
Yeah.
I'm a Jewish guy from New York City. It's like let's go. Like I want to talk, and I want to
Yeah.
know, and I want to know what's in your head, and I want to know what's in that person's, what's going on, and what's for lunch, and da da
Mm.
da. It just like I have a personality, and I think that also stems from like, being connected to my family. Like I'm a real person. I have like tons of friends, and whatever. I'm not going to brag about my social life, but you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not like a nerdy, quiet dude,
Right.
like I'm not sitting in my room, like looking at lenses,
Mm.
I'm out socializing and going, I live in Manhattan. My wife and I go out to dinner almost every night. Like, we have a life beyond cinematography. So when I get on set, I can't like shut that off. It's just like,
It's who you are.
that's who I am,
Yeah.
and it's just,
You've always been that way,
yeah.
even in the beginning of your career, everything.
I mean, I've always been a very social person. I always have been very extroverted I've always been interested in all kinds of things in life, just not cinematography. I'm obsessed with. It's amazing, but I don't look at it. It's just one thing that I do.
You don't solely identify as
No,
that.
not even close. Like I think like, I'm a cinematographer. If someone wants to talk to me about it, like someone cool like you, I'll talk to them about it. But I that's not really like my end all be all. Like I want to go travel the world and be with my friends and be with my family and be like, I don't want to live a myopic existence. I want to have I want everything. I want the family, I want the this, and I want the travel, and I want to eat great food and meet amazing people. And it's just, I think in the cinematography world, there is a tendency, it attracts certain type of people. And again, I don't know a lot of DPs because I don't ever on set, but to me, the ones that I've met a lot of times are not necessarily fully. I don't want to like disparage anybody, but they just feel like they're so they identify so much with their career that they kind of lose their personality and don't really like develop their sense of self without being connected to a camera and a lens.
I aspire to get to the point where I don't identify only as a DP. Like I want to be, and like I love that you don't like you don't identify only as a DP. You do all these other things, and that's your life. I love that, and I think that's hard sometimes for me in the beginning stage because I'm so aggressively determined to succeed in cinematography. I find that I'm so focused on it so often because I'm not where I quote unquote perceive where I want to be yet.
Yeah.
So I think I'm at my point, it's almost like there has to be an imbalance a little bit because I'm
Yes.
super ambitious.
Yes. I think I was there. I appreciate that. But I think it's a slippery slope. Like you have to have goals and set them, and then you have to look yourself in the mirror and be like, check, and now let's try to like do some other things with your life.
So it's essentially, it's not like check, what's next?
Yeah.
It's check, let's turn around for a second.
Well, yeah, I think it's
A little bit of both.
well, no, I think that I know what you're saying, but I think maybe more clearly, it's like, okay, like I've reached a certain goal. I had a goal. Look yourself in the mirror. Proud of myself. You have to have moments of being proud, and realize that you've achieved a goal that you set out to. Then you sort of, yeah, like turn away from that goal for a second and start spreading your energy around to other parts of life, because life is massive, and it can give you so many things and so many avenues that you're just kind of, you can get so absorbed in this world that we're talking about that it can steal your soul. And so I think, I mean, I've met all kinds of crew members who you're just like, you're on set like 300 days a year. Like you've lost you're not a person. You're like this weird robot or something.
And I think that's really interesting because a lot of the conversations I have with younger DPs and people is like, I am struggling to find work.
Right.
But then there's also the other side of like, how much work is too much work? And I find that to be a really interesting balance that not a lot of people talk about as well.
Yeah. No, that I've been through that. I've been through, like I said, there was a point a long time in my life where I was so in demand that I was just turning work down constantly. It was just like, and I had to really stop and just not burn out, and again, just try to find other things to do with my brain, because I was becoming, you don't want to burn out on the thing that you love. So yeah, I think that's an important conversation as well. Um, but it's all balance. Everything's
You
balance.
think it's also understanding what your true priorities are, where some people might have the priority of, I want to be a high level DP, but also I want to make so much money. So like their priorities might be, I just need to work. But some
Yeah.
others' priorities might be, I want to be a top level DP, but I also want to go travel with my family. So I think it's individual priorities that take a big role in that.
Yeah, but there are patterns in those things,
Mm.
Um, again, like if you want to be a top level DP, there'll be moments where you're like, you know, sacrificing things, like a lot of things.
What are some things that you feel that you sacrifice sometimes to get to the level that you're at?
I mean, definitely I've missed a lot of birthdays, I definitely have done that. Try not to do that, but I do it. Uh, I think that, again, I was confused at a young point in my life where my personality was becoming something that I didn't want it to be. So it was pretty angst driven, and it wasn't really the version of myself that I look back upon fondly. So yeah, you just do things that, to ambition is a crazy thing. Ambition is a narcotic, and at what cost? So that's really what you weigh as you're kind of going down these roads. How important is it to shoot a superhero movie? To me, it's not important at all, but it seems like it's very important to a lot of people. Um, so I know I've sacrificed things to shoot like an independent movie or whatever I want to shoot. So I can only imagine what people are doing to shoot a Marvel film. I'm not saying you can't do it all. You can. This is my own vision on it, right? And so because I do know people who are mentally healthy and who are doing high, those kind of films, but there's always a tax on all that stuff.
Do you find, are you a spiritual person at all?
Um, I'm Jewish. I was raised Jewish. My wife's Jewish. My children are obviously Jewish. I spirituality. Wow, that's a big one. I don't know how much time we have. No, I think I'm spiritual to a degree. Yeah, I mean, I think I am. I think I find spirituality mostly in my family, but I'm not really a I don't know what the right word is. Not to the degree of a lot of people. Put it that way. Yeah, yeah,
I guess maybe to kind of piggyback off the idea of spirituality or something, I think something that I find that is really important in my life is just like the presence of like gratitude.
yeah.
And I'm curious about if that's played a role in your life and the benefits maybe of being grateful for things.
Oh, I think I've been so lucky. I think I think I've been really lucky. Like I feel like I'm the luckiest person I know. I mean, I feel like as a young man, there were so many roads I could have taken, uh, and yeah, I feel. I mean, obviously, you always want more, and like your life could be better. So I'm not saying that I'm like satisfied. I'm not saying that. That's annoying, but I do feel like I got super lucky.
Do you find that you have the same level of ambition that you have? Because, there's the idea that you could
Yeah,
always have more.
yeah,
But when you're younger, that idea is really strong.
yeah.
But now at your stage of life, do you feel like you still have that sense of, I need to have more, more, and more? Or what does that look like now?
Again, I look at ambition as kind of like a narcotics. Like it's like something that you can get addicted to, and I think I've had different relationships with it throughout my life. So I think I've had more ambition, less ambition. Right now, I'm feeling pretty ambitious, which is good. I'm feeling like connected to my work kind of more than I have in maybe the last decade before. But
What do you attribute that to?
I think it's just cyclical.
Okay.
I think it's just
Like seasons and you
or
go
just
through?
no. I think it's like half decades. Like I think it's just like where you're at. Like
Wow.
I think again, my kids are getting older now, so like I'm ready to commit more of my time and energy to other things besides them. So um, I just feel like I'm more excited about filmmaking than I've been in a long time. I don't know. I just feel like it's this thing that is constantly there, and I'm pretty able to measure it like inside of me, and I kind of know like where I'm at with it. Like I can gauge it. Um, but I'm also very wary of it.
Mm.
Uh, and I also find sometimes when you're ambitious, overly ambitious, it backfires. So sometimes the world is just not wanting your wants, and you have to be in tune with that.
Where where do you find that you're experiencing the most joy in your life right now?
I am enjoying, of course, my children, but I am enjoying set more than ever. Really, I really am. I just have, I feel like, I feel kind of like the Mr. Miyagi on set right now, I just feel like I just feel like a lot of time I'm working with younger people now.
Uh-huh.
I'm 50 years old, so I just turned 50 this year. So like especially in the short form world, like that's kind of like grandpa style. So like I
Grandpa's.
I I just nothing phases me anymore. Like I just and I'm able to concentrate much deeper, and I just don't get distracted. So
Interesting.
it's
Yeah,
it's kind of a zen space for me,
that's
and
really,
it was not always like that.
yeah.
When you've done enough work on all different types of things, thousands of whatever they are, short form work, it places less like I still want to crush it. I still want to smash it. I want to hit it out of the park every time. That I don't lose, but the stakes are a little less high, I think.
Mm. Do you feel like you put less pressure on yourself?
No, I still put pressure. I still put immense pressure on myself, and I'm a huge critic. But when it's wrapped and I come home, it's less of a thing. It doesn't. The bank of work that I've built allows me to be a little less like nervous or like if it didn't work out, if it gets shelved, it's like sometimes you do something and never sees light day, like and you get crushed, like that kind of stuff doesn't phase me anymore. So on set, I that kind of calmness and that sense of like stability, which was never there for me before, it comes so much easier.
Do you think that there's a misconception that maybe a lot of younger filmmakers or DPs have now, that they wish or they perceive that they should be somewhere that they're not? But I don't think a lot of us, even putting myself in with a lot of
Yeah.
younger people, that we understand really and truly how long it takes to get to the point where we want to.
Well, that's a hard question. It's a good one because that has all changed, and I feel like it changes every year with all the new tech and all. I don't really. It's hard for me to get inside of other DPs' heads,
Yeah.
and I don't, especially because I don't really feel akin to a lot of them, and I don't really have any other friends that are DPs. Um, so I don't really understand what's happening out there. But I will say that when we were shooting film, it was a much harder job.
Mm.
It was a much, much harder job. Being a gaffer was a hard job. I mean, just color temperature alone was like, we used to get into telecine, what I call telecine, you guys call color. Telecine was the most, I mean, there was, you couldn't like grab something and like change the color temperature. It was, it was a nightmare. I mean, it was so that sort of like learning curve seems to have gotten a lot softer.
Right.
Because now it seems much more immediate. I mean, I think cinematography has gotten way better. Like the level of cinematography is so much better than it was. But the bell curve, I think that's changed. Like the how you're able to break in. So it's hard for me to gauge that kind of question, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah.
It's because I come from a certain place where it was a different, I was 15 years of film, and now we're doing video, which I love. I find it so much easier. But I just shot something on 16. I underexposed everything. So I was like, and we didn't see the film for like 4 days because we shot it out of the country, and it was nerve wracking. I mean, it was like your whole life is flashing through your eyes, like at night, you're just like, wow. Uh, Um, it was annoying, and I felt annoyed by it. But then you see it, you're like, oh yeah, great. Like this is, I'm always shooting film now. Like film's
Yeah.
amazing. Like it's just that whole process of being a journey as a young DP, I think is hard for me to understand. Yeah.
I think it's something that I don't know if this is the right perspective, but something that I've been thinking about is I look at certain jobs or I look at certain work and I'm like, I wish I was doing that, or I wish I
Yeah.
could do that like right now. But then I have to like sit back and realize if I were given that opportunity to shoot that big thing, would I actually be prepared for it?
Right.
My answer is no, I don't think I would be yet. I haven't gone through enough for me to feel comfortable enough to actually say, yes, I can accomplish that job.
Right.
And I think that's something where maybe some people are missing is truly experience and also going through so many things. Like you said, you've seen everything. So now you're in this sort of Zen state
Yeah.
that I haven't gotten to yet, obviously,
Right.
because I'm still a baby
Yes.
here.
And I've been there, and I understand what you're saying totally. I mean, I just think like, again, you have to be in sync with your existence
Mm-hmm.
and really under understand that it's a step-by-step thing, and like push yourself, try to put your name on things visually, try to make it your own, and eventually you'll get there. And so when you're there, it'll just feel like another thing, like those opportunities you should feel in sync with every opportunity that you're getting.
But it should scare you a little bit, though.
I
Some
like to be
projects,
scared.
yeah,
I
that's
always
important to you.
I feel fear is a very important thing.
Mm.
I've always used it. I've always depended on it.
But fear in the sense of trying something new or something you haven't done before, not like a negative sense of fear.
No, well, I don't think fear is negative or positive. It
Okay.
just exists. I mean,
Mm.
I think I like the stakes to be high,
Right.
and that turns me on. So that's something I've always loved, and that's I think all my other part of short form that I love too is like you get on set, you have like 2 or 3 days, and you arrive at 7 a.m. and everyone's like, okay, let's go, and it's just like bang, and like that part of it makes me feel it's almost like an athletic sport, and I do love that aspect of working where you're just like you have your team, and you're just trying to accomplish a goal, and I just love that part of it, the problem solving in a very
Mm.
distinct.
I think problem solving is like, what do you think, 80% of the job, if not more?
Yeah, I just love it. I always say like I would definitely be like a grip if I wasn't because I just love rigging,
Yeah.
and I always bother my grips, when they do a good rig, I'm always like nerding out on it. But
Right.
it's to me that's sort of there's a part of me that just loves like, okay, like how are we gonna like whatever it is, like what's the right tool, and how do you get this over there to do that.
Mm.
That part of it is so much fun to me, and I just like playing Legos.
Right.
You know.
Love that. What about the job, your job right now, is different than what you perceived it to be?
Oh, what I perceived it to be. Perceived it before I did it.
Uh, it could be even when you first started, like, what did you expect your role to be? Or like, did you expect to get to where you are? And now that you are at a certain point, is it what you imagined it would be?
I think like if I was to go way back into my film school days, I think I probably saw myself making Academy Award winning movies, right? So that hasn't really happened, not even close. But that's still the goal, for sure. I guess that would be one thing that is different than what I thought it was gonna be. I guess just like the mental health side of it has been a journey for me in a good way, but I didn't think it was going to be. I think as a young man, you kind of think like if you're just doing it, it's your life will be amazing or something like that. But it's so far from that, right? So yeah, I think just maintaining a steady mental state and making sure that you're a good person, I think is it's not as easy as it sounds like. You kind of take that stuff for granted, I think.
Is there still things that you find that are challenging to you or things that you're continually trying to learn about? Like, are there new things? And maybe this comes to the idea of like what you said, that you're a 50-year-old doing commercial, that your grandpa,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
How have you stayed in this game for so long? Is it your ability to attach yourself to new innovation, new technology?
yeah.
Like, what about
I don't
that?
know. I've asked myself that before. There's not most of the DPs I came up with are either in features or gone. I don't even know what they're doing, half of them. So it's an interesting question. I don't know if I have the answer to that question. I think staying young, trying to stay young is great. Like I just love just being excited, always is. I mean, on this last few shoots, I was so excited. I was just like felt like I was 25 again, just giddy, like excited for like, oh shit, we're doing this cool thing with this cool lens and that I've never used, or I don't know. I keep the stakes high and try to stay excited about it.
Do you find that you are open to new technology and
Yeah.
innovation? And
Yeah.
um, I don't know if maybe this is something you want to talk about, but like there's also like in the space filmmaking space, there's the fear of like AI. Is that
Yeah.
something that you have thought about?
Not really, but I'm freaked out by it.
Mm.
But I'm more freaked out for like you guys than me. I think, I mean, I hope to work into my 70s or 80, I don't know. I mean, it's Conrad Hall, where he died. He shot Road to Perdition and then died, and he was 82 or something. He won an Academy Award the year before he died. Um, so it'd be great to be that, but I don't
I
know.
mean, it kind of is a job you could do.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not operating at that age,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I mean, hopefully there's a space for us. I don't know. It seems scary for everybody, but again, like it's just fear. So like, what you just, as long as you're still getting work and still doing stuff, I don't know. What's your thought about that stuff?
um, I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah.
I think that I naturally would go to like the pessimistic spot of like, oh, it's going to take over. But I think I'm I become more optimistic in that world where I almost look at it as, is AI going to take over everything in film specifically? I don't think so. I don't believe so because I think human nature is will overtake that in the sense that I think humans want to see things that humans make,
Mm-hmm.
but AI made things I think will just become a different genre,
Mm-hmm.
or it might just take over smaller content type of stuff. But I think I'm optimistic in that there's going to be a space for humans still.
Yeah. It's a weird thing to say, but yeah.
It for sure it's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I have no idea either. With the technology and like I guess like innovation, I think something I am trying to figure out too is as I step up as a DP, there's obviously new tools, new things that you get access to. How do you find the confidence to pitch something or a piece of tool, for example, like a techno crane on something if you've never done it before?
Oh yeah, that old thing. Yeah, the old if you haven't done it, how do you
Yeah,
know? Which is I was always like just do it. Like
just do it.
I was just always like I never was scared of that stuff. I mean, I was scared, but I would just say like F it, like let's go. Like I don't care. Like I still don't feel totally comfortable on the wheels. I still just I it's like I'm dyslexic or something, or I mean I can do them, and like after all this time, like I've done so much of it, but like, and I hate that other thing, like the fluid head that's like, that thing, like
I
it's
don't
a
know.
fluid head that is attached to the remote head. It's like a pan bar.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
another
I'm
choice.
familiar with wheels and joysticks.
There's a third option.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the third yet.
Basically, it's a mimic of you have a fluid head and you pan it like this without a camera on it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I've seen
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Mm.
so dumb, but you end up like walking around the tripod. Anyway, so my point is like I do my best to have the right people and the right equipment.
The right team. Yeah.
And I think if you have the people and because there's so many great like operators and techno crane operators and head techs, and if you just engage with these people, they'll help you.
Yeah.
And now they're like my collaborators,
Mm.
and there's just so many great technicians out there.
Mm. When you say like communicate with them, how do you feel about the idea of like transparency and
I think
explaining to them that you aren't familiar with it in a way?
you have to do that. I actually wish I did that more. I mean, I did
Mm,
it quite a bit. I just be like, dude, like I don't know how to do this.
right, right.
Can you help me? And 99% of the time, they're like so excited to help you.
But transparency is important.
Yeah, people want to help you, especially if you're a young person. They're most crew members are if you have a certain amount of a bit of a nose for like hiring people, most of them are such great people and want to help and want to teach, and I think it empowers them.
Do you tend to work with a lot of the same people over the years? Like, what are characteristics that you look for in people?
I think that's hard to say. I mean, I hold people up to high standards. Um, I'll let somebody know if they're not. I'm pretty good at that. Like if they're not like living up to my standards or whoever standards.
On set?
Yeah, I'm pretty good
Mm.
at telling
What is,
people that.
if you don't mind me asking, what does that conversation look like?
It's gnarly. It's no fun, but it's contentious. But I'm also willing to let. I mean, I'm not doing what like some of these '90s directors were doing, where they're like undressing people in front of the whole crew, which is unbelievable. I've seen it happen. One director in particular who I worked with for years was a monster. But he would go home and he'd feel bad and he'd be like, and sometimes though the guy who he crushed on set would come up to him and say like thank you, because it was, I don't know, this was his whole theory, but I don't advise that at all. But I will let people know, like I'll find a way to kind of just tell them that I was like disappointed, or we talked about this thing, and it's like I feel that one of my biggest problems in filmmaking, in actual cinematography, is that you pay for things, not you, but the production pays for things that a lot of times don't actually work. For example, like it doesn't happen as much anymore, but it still happens. You order an 18K and it shows up on set and it doesn't turn on. You still pay for it. Or, you hire a crew member, you have a very, very clear conversation about like what the objective is. That comes time to be on set, here's the thing, got to do this, and they can't do it, and they
Mm.
still get paid. What's the repercussion? They don't get fired. You're not firing somebody. Maybe you don't hire them again, but they're still off working. Anyway, I just don't love the checks and balances there. So I try to let people know in the most polite way. I'm just trying to say like, my man or my woman, whatever. Like, come on, like we're supposed to be the best of the best here. Like let's live up to that, because I believe in that for sure. I believe in delivering for sure.
Does that standard uphold in your communication with them in prep? Like, do you have
Yes.
a very strong prep process with your crew?
I just like to communicate with people and set expectations.
Are you also, with prep, do you find that you're also open to spontaneity as well?
Yeah. Always open to spontaneity. I mean, I think
That's
that's,
like the fun part.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what we do.
right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the magic. Um, but yeah, hiring people's tough. I mean, I try to find people that I love, and then sometimes a lot of the people that I've hired have become like they've moved beyond me. Even they're like way out into the studio filmmaking, and they just get lost. But I keep in touch with them, and they know me so well that the people that they recommend to me now, they know that like
Yeah.
he'll get you. He'll
Mm.
understand your process. So, there's one of my old assistants is now doing only movies and great film, like the best films. And he was my assistant for a really long time, and I love him. Um, but he's impossible to book. But now he's my first call because he gets it. He's like, oh, I met this guy. He was great. Or this woman, she was great. You'll totally vibe with this person. And 99% of the time he's right.
I think leadership is a very powerful thing to learn
Mm.
in this role as like a DP. Were there were there things that helped you along the way in terms of leadership? Were you big into um, I don't know, reading leadership books, or were there anything that kind of like helped inform, or was it just trial by fire for you when it came to leadership specifically?
I don't really know. And I don't really know if I believe that
Mm,
leadership is a thing for a DP. I'm not
okay.
really sure.
Yeah.
Um, I think any path, well, not any path, sorry, any reasonable path to making a good image is the goal.
Mm,
So I think I try to lead with some humor and some levity. I know that's not the way everyone does it. So, people, a lot of my crew guys will say like, oh yeah, that guy. I'll be like, oh, how was it working with blah, blah, blah. I really respect his work. Like he's somebody that I lose a lot of jobs to or whatever. He's like, he's amazing. I'm
yeah.
referencing his work or whatever it is. And one of my guys will be like, whoa, he makes great images, but what a weirdo. Like, wow, didn't say anything to me or whatever. It provided no leadership, but he's still making great work.
Sure.
So like, I don't know if I believe in leadership.
I guess it almost just makes you more of like a human in connecting with your team then.
I just enjoy people.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah. Yeah.
like people. I
Yeah.
like joking and I like having fun.
Whether or not that makes you an inherently good leader, I think that helps resonate, or just, I think that helps you connect with your team more.
Well, it helps me, and also selfishly, it just helps me enjoy the work. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just want
Yeah.
to have fun. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really, really enjoy. I just don't want to be miserable. So I'm like joking around and trying to lighten the mood a little bit. There'll be tense moments, but all the people that I work with, they know that there's, hopefully if we're having like a very intimate scene, they're not joking around, but like they know that most of the time a joke is invited or like
For sure.
fun is
Yeah.
part of it, and making fun of each other or whatever, it's like that's always invited unless it's a very specific moment on set.
I wonder if this is the same for you. But we all wear these headsets,
Yeah.
and like that's where all the jokes happen
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
these headsets. The headsets are so much fun.
I like the headsets. I like them. I might be oversaturated on them now. I think they've gotten crazy. It used to be like it was just me, the AC, and the grip and the gaffer.
Right.
Now it's like everyone.
Everybody.
Yeah, like the director is starting to get on there. I'm just like, what?
Oh, director on there's no good.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like it's cool. I still think it's better than yelling or
Yeah.
hey man, like that's.
Do you use a laser pointer at all? Has that ever been something that?
I only use it really in foreign countries
Okay.
where sometimes I have had to work with non-English speaking keys, which is really hard. Yeah. So that's you're like, take that, put it over there.
I remember the first time I saw laser was with I was watching Bill Pope
Oh, really?
work once, and all he did was just point a laser. He was just sitting down and pointing lasers everywhere. I thought it was really fascinating.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's my style. I use it sometimes, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. I'd rather talk it out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you find that you're at peace in your life right now?
Yeah, I do. I do. I mean, I think peace.
You think peace is a choice?
I'm not sure if peace is attainable, like total peace, but I feel I love peace, and it's one of my favorite things. So I definitely try to have it as much as possible. Uh, I mean, I'm like anybody though. Like, there's never enough. I don't know. There's never enough. It's like I want more. So like, peace is tough, but I think I can look and think about my life and feel not too anxious about it.
You are where you are now, sitting there, and across from you is that version of you 30 years ago.
Yeah.
What advice would you give that younger version of you?
Um, Stay in shape,
Mm,
number one, both mentally and physically. And again, just open your heart and listen to your heart and don't listen too much to your head and um, connect. If you can look at something that you've done and it brings you to tears, like, and those are real tears, like you've done it.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure.